Hello, my name is Not a Gnome, and today we're going to unlock all the characters in Soulstone Survivors. Let's get to it. Let's talk about the first two, Pyromancer and Houndmaster. Kill the first boss on the first map and finish the match in under 25 minutes. Most people shouldn't have a problem with this, as long as you dodge the red indicators to the best of your ability and play a couple matches, you should be able to unlock these within the first 1 or 2 hours of the game. Alright, let's talk about the next 4 to unlock. These include the Spellblade, Sentinel, Paladin, and Arcane Weaver. You unlock these, plain and simply, by grinding. For the Spellblade, you kill 10,000 enemies. For the Sentinel, you kill 100 elite enemies. Paladin, you complete all 5 maps in their basic form, and Arcane Weaver, you beat 50 bosses. The most efficient way to do this is to go through each of the maps in their default form. This will allow you to progress steadily through all of the characters' progression requirements and eventually unlock the Paladin once you've completed all 5 of the maps. If you're still working to unlock the Arcane Weaver, that one will take a little longer. If you're grinding bosses, I'd recommend, at least in the early stages, just to use the Sentinel. They are really good at focus firing other enemies, and you'll be able to kill these bosses pretty quickly. There's really not a lot to unlocking these, you just need to get through each of these enemy requirements and grind them out. Tips and tricks. First, the terrain is your enemy. I don't know why, but these goddamn tree and cliff models are much smaller than their actual hitboxes.
Damn it! Fuck!
Stay away from them. A lot of my early defeats are due to me getting snagged on these goddamn trees or cliffs, or getting caught in corners because the hitbox is small but I'm still getting caught. The second tip I have for you is to throw your friends under the bus. And by this, I mean using summonable creatures, the earliest type of which being the Chaos Golem. Summonable creatures like the Chaos Golem provide you breathing room while you work on killing bosses and enemies. This is because both the boss AI and the regular enemies have a tendency to focus them, allowing you opportunities to kill them while they massacre the only friends you have. This works especially well if you have Smite, which heals you if you stay in its radius. By watching your friends die, you can use that time to bask in the light of a god that
probably will never forgive you.
A note I would make is to try to place your friends in open areas and avoid corners or enclosed terrain. This will cause you to create an area of concentrated fire which will prevent you from reaching bosses without dying. Maybe this is your punishment for using your friends as bait. Maybe that's just my opinion. The third tip I have to give you is to get good scrub. This is not really a tip, more that I feel it is important for you to pay attention to the different moves the bosses have and their timings. Obviously, you are all MLG Dark Souls 3 gamers, so you don't need me to tell you, but once the bosses start overlapping their moves, you will need to know these almost by muscle memory. Essential upgrades. I am now going to reference the skill tree. In this skill tree, you upgrade things. Of these upgrades, I'm going to talk about the essentials. First thing to upgrade is the second dash. You need 2 dashes. Your spacebar is a good friend, and you should learn to time your dashes so that you are in almost constant state of dash, and you will avoid many problems. If you ever get the option to upgrade to more dashes, then take it. You need dash. Dash good. The second essential upgrade is the revive skill. This skill lets you come back to 50% health if you get killed. If you fully upgrade it, you get to do this twice. Oh what? You think you're too good for these, huh? You think you're too good for a little revive, Mr. Perfect? Well, you came to me. It's essential. I'm not elaborating. Alright, after this, there are also skills that give you rerolls on abilities and banish shit abilities. Runes are also a thing. They're important, but for now, let's just know they exist and we'll talk about them during specific unlocks in the future challenges. Alright, no more tips and tricks. By now you should have unlocked at least 6 or 7 characters depending on how much you've been Shrigma grinding. These include the Spellblade, Sentinel, Paladin, Arcane Weaver, Pyromancer, Houndmaster, and Assassin. But now we're going to get to the real shit. The real meat and potatoes that chafed your nuts and smashed your keyboard enough to come to me. Obviously, there may be better and more efficient ways to complete these next challenges and unlock these characters. But this is how I did it. First unlock, Necromancer. The challenge, complete the Tier 3 dungeon. Tier 3 increases the difficulty by doubling the lords in each boss fight. making less health for each crystal you acquire, including more suicide bombers and high HP elite enemies. For this one, I used the Spellblade character. He's not my favorite, but he seemed to work well enough for this one. The abilities we used were Slash, Quick Strike, Magic Missiles, Flurry, Arcane Beam, and Thunderstrike. I started with no revives or rune upgrades, but did have one extra dash. The best way I played this one was to use your abilities aggressively on the bosses. This was important as I didn't have really any crowd control, but lots of concentrated frontal fire. This allowed me to kill the bosses quickly and avoid stacking bosses on the next wave. This is a very important point that you're going to see throughout most of the challenges. At the endgame analysis, it showed that the majority of the damage came from Flurry and Magic Missile, which allows for rapid fire hits that stack debuffs and damage over time really effectively. This plus the increased multicast chance allowed me to lean into it even more. I also added a little bit of high armor power to stay tanky and high pickup range in order to stay strong enough to handle the increasing difficulty as the waves continued. Necromancer, done. Okay, next unlock, the Chaosmancer. The challenge, complete Endless Cycle 1. Now, the Endless Cycle is basically New Game Plus, and you can unlock it by beating the map once prior. And it essentially allows you to continue your run with the same abilities, but all the difficulty levels of the bosses and the enemies increase. The character I used for this was the Sentinel with the upgraded weapon, which you can use via the Blacksmith. In terms of runes and upgrades, I started with an extra dash and one revive. The abilities I used were Bloodlust, Poison Bolt, Shadow Bolt, Void, and Chaos Golem. This is a very high DPS build with the purpose of shredding the first cycle, allowing the golems to take aggro, the Bloodlust increases cast frequency, the Void increases damage taken, the damage over time bolt shots increase the damage over time. All these combined allow you to get close and turn your enemies into a fine miss. In terms of passive upgrades, I upgraded crit damage and cast frequency whenever possible. And I used the time I had to focus one boss at a time and kill them before the next wave boss arrived. One problem I did end up finding was the large void area modifiers prevented you from seeing anything on the ground. Which reminds me, I would also recommend adjusting your cursor to be more visible. I think the one I use is green, because I cannot see anything after a certain point in the late game. Chaosmancer, done. Next unlock, the Legionnaire. The challenge, complete 70% of Endless Cycle 2. The character I used for this was actually the Chaosmaster. Mancer, whatever. The startup buffs were +1 dash, 2 revives, and the Weapon Expert rune, which is unlocked by reaching level 100 in a match, along with the Center of Attention rune, which is unlocked by unlocking 8 characters. The abilities I used for this run were Chaos Missile, Unchained Chaos, unlocked through Weapon Expert rune, Smite, Chaos Golem, Arcane Sparks, and Arcane Power. This run was built around multicast. The two main Chaosmancer skills each cause a random debuff and damage. The golems drag aggro, the spark balls and chains give them every single disease imaginable, and 1,000,000 smites due to the multicast continue to heal any damage you may have taken. This allows you to stay safe and away from danger as you commit unspeakable amounts of debuffs to your enemies. Endgame analysis showed that the multicast chance was upgraded to 76%, the area modifier was upgraded to 78%, and the cast frequency was upgraded to 125%. It should be noted that multicast does work on golems as well, which is why in this run they did the most damage with 122 million, followed by Arcane Sparks and Chaos Missile. Next. The next unlock is the Elemenatalist. The challenge? Beat a match before 10 minutes have passed. This one is especially tricky, and I'm not sure if what I did can actually be replicated properly. The character I used was the Arcane Weaver. The skill tree upgrades were all of them. I had unlocked everything at that point besides the runic tree upgrades. The runes I used? None, mainly because I forgot. One thing I will mention is I added the Explosive Goblin Curse for increased enemy kills. The abilities I used were Arcane Sparks, Arcane Power, Glacier, Bloodlust, and Chain Lightning. The goal of this build was to get in the corner and focus damage. using passive upgrades like Leviathan and high AoEs to create large, concentrated strikes in a small area, and to kill as many enemies as quickly as possible. This means making sure high HP enemies die quickly and focusing them with many of your attacks. In the end, I finished with only 3 seconds to spare by hurling myself at the enemy, dying and reviving twice to get the time. Next unlock, Beastmaster. Challenge, complete the Tier 4 woods. Tier 4 is essentially the same as Tier 3, but include giant pillars of Sauron which throw giant meteors at you unless you kill them. The red towers are continuous strikes at your location, while the purple ones strike in random areas in your vicinity. The character I used was Assassin. The starting skill tree buffs for all of them. The runes I used were Weapons Expert and Center of Attention. The abilities, Sinister Strike, Bloodlust, Vortex of Doom, Chaos Golem, and Flurry. The strategy was to focus purple towers whenever possible, as they are the hardest to dodge and it becomes very difficult to maneuver if the towers stack. I used Flurry with large AoE and Sinister Strike for heavy damage on backstab. The last 2 bosses were exceedingly difficult, but Flurry and Vortex of Doom allowed me to safely chip them down through terrain and away from danger. The upgrades were fairly general, with decent damage, crit damage, and multicast chance upgrades, with only mild upgrades in armor power. Next unlock. The final unlock was the Death Knight. The challenge, complete Tier 5 on the Wasteland map. In summary, Tier 5 includes all prior curses, with the increase of 3 lords per fight, and a clone of one of the characters to continuously taunt and murder you as well. This one was without a doubt the most difficult challenge. It took several hours of attempts and experimentation to find what I believe to be the ideal setup to win, and even after finding this ideal setup, it still took several attempts and a lot of suffering. At one point, I just ended up watching All Quiet on the Western Front because I wanted to see someone else suffer that wasn't me. Character, Beastmaster, with prestige level at least 50. Skill tree, all buffs. Ruins, Weapon Expert, Skill Affinity, Nature, and Dash Mastery. The abilities, Venomous Slash, Cobra Totem, Poison Bomb, War Moose, War Tiger, and Bestial Wrath. The strategy I used for this was a hybrid of poison stacking abilities with summons, the Venomous Slash, Totems, and Poison Bombs, with the bomb leaving a puddle to increase the poison stacks. Tiger Summon also does bleed while drawing aggro, and Moose does moose things while also drawing aggro. The Bestial Wrath ability increases the speed and multicast monitor for summons, including the Snake Totem. With this in mind, the strategy is simple. Kill the purple towers quickly and get close enough to the bosses to start killing them as fast as possible. If any boss waves ever stack, you have most likely lost. You should time your summoning spawns with assaulting towers so they can kill quickly before the bosses spawn. The Bestial Wrath is extremely effective at giving opportunities to stack poison and kill quickly. Put it all together and you end up with this clip and a finished challenge.
Yes! Yes! Ah! I did it!
All in all, this experience was tough but rewarding, and I hope you learned enough from me to continue on and get the unlocks you need. Alright, that's it from me. Take care.